Okay, we're picking up the action here in the game of Killer Angels, the advanced game. It's the first scenario, first Winchester, and 5 days into the campaign, Lee encounters Hooker here, or rather, Hooker jumps on Lee. Well, let me just amend that. Is that I can't remember it, to be honest, the exact situation now, because it's been a few days since I've been here. But essentially, I think this is just meant to be a kind of like a training scenario. It's only 7 days long. That's 7 turns in the advanced game, and Lee has to defend a depot here, and they have to take the town of Winchester here. So I think essentially all it means is that he would release a core. So he has a core here already. He keeps a core here, and he takes Winchester, and somehow Hooker, who's here, Lee has to stop him from taking one of these depots. Now, I'm not sure if I miss something in the strategy of the game, but anyway, maybe this battle will tell us. But I don't really see how Lee, he cannot move the depot here. The Confederates cannot destroy depots. This one is fairly well guarded, so Hooker's already had a go at this. It's in a fortification, and although he sent in, I think it was 3 corps to take it from Ewell's corps, and he's withdrawn. That those corps withdrew. So Hooker went up to go and take this, which is was guarded just by a single division. Stuart hightailed it back. Oh no, Stuart's there. So who do we actually have here? Yeah, it's merely Early's division. Lee hightailed it back from here. I think Hooker got there first, and then Lee arrived a bit later in the day. I don't remember what happened. You'd have to watch the videos to tell. But anyway, basically Hooker's attacking, and Lee's has to defend. I don't see in this scenario how the Confederates can win, because Hooker's got massive force. He could have just taken it all there and probably have taken it even with Lee coming in to defend. I don't know. So this is going to be a telling battle. It gives us a chance to really try out the battle rules in an extended battle, because I think this is going to go on for more than 1 day, which I haven't played out yet. In the meantime, Longstreet here will have to be taking Winchester, and I think he could not take Winchester with less than a corps. He's going to need probably 3 divisions to take a fortification like that against the single division that is already in there. So I don't know. It seems tough on Lee, and I think to me this seems the scenario is a done deal as a win for Hooker, because the Confederates have to manage so much. In the terms of the whole campaign, it would make sense, because Lee could leave that depot, pick up another depot here, survive via wagon trains and forage into Pennsylvania. He wouldn't have to worry about that depot, but in this scenario it's important. And so in terms of the whole campaign, this is a very odd situation that 5 days in, Lee and Hooker duke it out, with Lee standing at massive disadvantage, at least on the face of it. But anyway, here we are, and it gives us a chance to look at the battle rules. So Hooker dived in quite quickly, moved to the battle phase in his player turn of this game turn. Okay, I have to take all that back, because actually maybe it's not such a bad thing, because actually Hooker's detached so much that he's actually in there only with the 11th and the 5th corps. That's Meade and Howard. So we've got Sedgwick here, we've got 4 corps here, Pleasanton's up here, but some of these might be able to join in later in the battle. Anyway, so it's going to be initially a 2-round battle, and we start by appointing commanders. Now Hooker's activated all of his, so it's Hooker, Mead and Howard will be all contributing their command, and Lee is already activated, but it seems he hasn't had his game turn yet. He hasn't activated anyone else, and so he can activate your. You can activate one other commander as a kind of automatic activation. So we got Lee and Ewell versus Hooker, Mead and Howard. Then we can decide if we're going to be leaving some units in reserve. Now, the Union has to place a whole corps in reserve, and the advantage of that is if you bring them on later as a flanking gesture, they can get a combat bonus. But Hooker's, maybe Hooker's going to do that because his corps are not that strong. These two are only 2 division corps, so he might need that bonus. Oh no, Howard is actually 3. So let's say he's going to bring in, he's going to fight with Mead to start with, and he's going to leave Howard in reserve. And this happens secretly, just write it down. You can do it within the battle, but rather than at this point before the battle, but that will cost you action points. And then Lee, he can place divisions in reserve. And let's say he puts early in reserve. Okay. So just mark that with a little cube for me to remember. Okay, so then we go to okay, we've done leader selection. Then we go combat option selection. Okay, so Hooker took attack, and Lee's going to take defend. Then the defender gets to fire and entrench. So normally you would roll for, in the advanced game, you'd roll for each division, or you could roll as the whole corps. I think we'll do that. I think that's correct, because you're supposed to sort of keep track of the size of the entrenchment. So for example, if a division entrenches, a corps couldn't use it as a bonus. Okay, we get that entrenchment. There's already, that's right, yeah, so Early's actually already got 2 levels of entrenchment. So one of the divisions there, then we've got another one. So let's say one of the other divisions has got a level of entrenchment. Okay, so we got 3 levels of entrenchment, but only for one division. Or do I put 2 levels for 2 divisions? It's getting a bit complicated, head scratchy, so I just try and keep it simple. 3 levels for one division. I'm not quite sure what that means. And that means that one division is held in reserve and another division will not have any entrenchment. I'm not sure what that's going to mean on the combat results table roll until we get to that step. I'll have to check it up in the rules. But anyway, so then he gets to fire. So he can be firing with 2 of those divisions, and they're at 13 strength points. He's going to declare them all, which gives us 26 strength points firing. So I'm selecting the common there. The combat bonus of the leaders means, okay, the division leaders don't give us much, so yeah, you're on 2 and Lee on 10, so that gives us plus 12 on the die roll. So that's a simple d6 roll. 2 plus 12 gives us 14. It goes up to 17 plus at the most, which gives us 6 hits. Strength point losses. Now that is quite a lot. One, 2, 3, 6. And so I'll be taking those off Mead's. 2 more of those and his force will be gone. His core will be destroyed. Okay, so then the attacker has his fire step, so Me's going to turn fire. So he's only got 11 strength points left. Plus, okay, how is in reserve? So plus me is 3 and Hooker is 7, so that's plus 10. They rolled a 2 as well, brings them up to 12, but then they are firing in town. That's the attacker gets this modifier, it's -1, so that brings us to 11. And the attacker's firing from March, but not exhausted, so that's another -5, so they're down to 6. So, and firing entrenched defender, so I need to check that. Okay, it wasn't as complicated as I thought. Basically, a cavalry brigade and smaller, what they call class 1 units, cannot build entrenchments for divisional size units. So that's essentially 3 strength points, 3 levels of entrenchment for any and all those divisions. So where were we? We were on 12 minus, and then I have to hang on. I should have to shift that 1, 2, 3. Okay, so they're only going to do 1 strength point loss to the Confederates. Okay, so it is looking like a more balanced battle than I thought it was going to be. But the Confederates are still standing. They're 8 strength points lost overall, more than the Confederates. They can't take more losses or else they will lose the scenario, more than 10 more than the Union. So I have to take that 1 off. Let's take it off Johnson. Okay. And now we go to the step where the Union, they lost the most, they can decide to fight or flight or call for reinforcements. And Hooker's going to do that, so he's going to call. That's 2 action points. That means any units, 1, 2, 3, 4, within 6 hexes can move 2 hexes towards. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Even Slocum here, who was in a battle hex, but the battle had finished, and you can only have 1 battle in any game turn at a time. So as I read it, that means Slocum can move out of Fredericksburg, leaving Hill high and dry. Now, that does leave a wagon train there, so actually I'm going to leave Slocum to guard the wagon train of the Army of the Potomac. Okay, so we've got 3 more corps moving this way. And then Lee gets that opportunity. So, oh, and also here, 1 and 2. So Pleasanton is in the hex. I'm starting to get a rather large stack there. Okay, the units actually have to move 2 hexes, so I can't just do a 1 hex move like that. So that's sensible, really, because that was me fiddling. He wasn't marching to the sound of the guns. It was just a administrative sort of organisational thing. Okay. So that was good. So now who does Lee? Lee doesn't have anyone else. Potentially they could move in, but that would leave Depot at Gordonsville undefended, so no, these are just pickets. There's no one else he can call to his aid. He could call back. No, Stuart's just a bit out of range. Never mind. He wants to stay anyway. So then we go to the second round. leaders will stay the same, but at this point we're now going to try to commit, both sides are going to try to commit their reserves to battle, knowing that the other is doing it. And that happens in that decision step. So, okay, so that meant that at that point of the call to the sound of the battle, Hooker, who has to first say, right, I'm going to try and flank you with Howard. So he has to spend an action point for that, Hooker does. And I just noticed that, okay, well, you have to roll less than the leader's combat rating, and you can modify that with by spending 1 to 3 action points. However, you also do that at the beginning of the battle, so even the units that start the battle might be delayed. So potentially you could have one side declaring a battle and not having anybody to fight with at the start. I didn't do that, but that would make for interesting situations. Okay, so Howard has an action point. He's going to spend his action point, and then he's got -1 combat bonus. I should have, oh dear, it should have been Meade. Yeah, let's say that wouldn't have made sense because Howard's would have been useless to try and perform that order. So we'll say Meade was doing that, which means that 6 that have to take the losses from Howard's folks. Okay. So Meade's got he's got 3 combat. And he's going to spend 3. This is a bit crucial of his action points. He has 5, so he's well suited for that. So he's definitely going to be able to come in at this point. And so then Lee, who gets to have his decision after, sees that happening and is going to try and bring in, which he was going to do anyway, Early's division. Now Early has 1. So he's going to be activated, and he's got 1, 2, 3, 4. Lee's going to spend 4 points to bring Early up to 5, and I roll a 4, so yes, he comes in as well. So what effect does that have? I think they might cancel each other out. Now, interestingly, Hooker could also commit Pleasanton, who just arrived at the end of this round. Okay, and so normally the flanking would give you a 2-column shift, but because you both flanked each other, they cancel each other out. So net no effect. Okay, so we go back to defender's fire and entrenchment step. So Lee's still trying to entrench, spending another action point. Yes. So the entrenchments continue. I have 4 levels of entrenchment there, which is very nice. Now, what happens at this point is that now it's combat option selection before what I just did, and Hooker could have opted to defend, which would have meant that both sides would get to entrench. But Hooker wants to take this, so he's not. He's going on to attack. But first Lee gets to fire, and then he's got all of his. So that's 26. Oh, sorry, 25 and 4 gives us 29 plus 12. 3. So that's 7 strength point losses to Hooker. And we'll continue to take that off Howard. So Howard's got 3 divisions, 2 of them at 1 strength point. He's got 8 strength points worth. Disastrously. Yeah, it's okay, not great for Hooker. This is interesting because I haven't done that many battles. It's teaching me more about how the battles work in this game, for which I'm grateful. I can see, you really do want a decisive advantage and be in a good position, either with entrenchments. As the attacker, especially on the first day, you get so many minuses. So we go to the attacker. So now he has, with Meade having come in, he's got 18 plus, what did I say, 8, so that's 26 plus Pleasanton has 18 strength points himself of cavalry. So what's that? 38, 44. Okay, but then we're skipping down 4 columns for the entrenchments. We do get to add in Pleasanton now. Gives us a +1. So that's plus 11 on the die roll, 6, plus 11 is 17. So highest we get 5 strength points to the Confederates. Okay. That is punishing. Okay. So that's the end of the second round. Now, fight or flight or call to the sound of guns. So these ones can continue coming. Hooker's going to bring them on more. 1, 2. So they were not here yet. And Hooker's staying. Lee's staying. Now we go to the end of battle bookkeeping step. Now no one's going to be withdrawing, so both guys are going to stay there, which means that we just end the battle like that, and it can be picked up in the next day, I believe. But now we go to Lee's game turn of this day, and he can opt to continue the battle at the beginning of this game turn, in which case everything else freezes. And we just carry on this battle. And since it is decisive for this scenario, I see no reason not to continue it. So we're going straight to the battle phase. And leader selection, okay. Sorry, I counted Pleasanton in, and I hadn't actually rolled to see if he came in. Yes. Okay, so Hook would have to spend an action point to have brought him in. So it's going to continue like that. I don't think I'll take you through blow by blow, but I'll bring a report back on the outcome of the battle. Okay, well, just to give a quick note, so it's Lee's turn, so he chooses to continue the battle, so he doesn't get to move anyone else this game turn, which strategically is a bit odd, because it means that Longstreet here doesn't get to move this day at all, which might cost the Confederates the scenario if they don't take Winchester in time. They're only going to have 2 other days in which to do that. So it doesn't make sense, in fact, for Lee to continue the battle here. So the battle has ended, but Lee's folks cannot move out of the hex because the battle is considered to have lasted all day anyway, with the Union attacking. But just to note, if Lee had decided to continue the battle, he could have chosen to be the attacker. He wouldn't get a -5 die roll modifier for firing from March. So he would have had although he would fire second, he would still get a decent hit. And as it stands, the Union have 42 strength points and +11 combat modifier from their leaders, versus Lee's 26 strength points and +13 combat modifier, but 4 levels of entrenchment. So it's an interesting battle, but there's 3 more corps just about to arrive, and I don't think the Confederates are going to survive it, but we'll have to pick that up probably in the next game turn, because Lee has to stay there, as I say, so otherwise he won't be able to win the scenario. He has to guard that depot. So in fact he's not going to continue that, and so he goes to his movement, and Longstreet's able to move independently. He's going to, he's got -1. Yes, okay, so he manages it. He's got -1 because of previous movement. So he's moving himself and his headquarters over the river here. 1, 2, 3 hexes. And that's going to give him an exhausted marker. Okay. He's going to leave Jenkins there. Well, no, why do that? So Stuart activates himself. He's already activated. Okay, Stuart's going to move Jenkins 1, 2, 3. So Jenkins is actually going to be skirmishing in Winchester, and Stuart himself will move back to transport Lee. 3. Okay. Okay, the only other action in this game turn is that in the free reaction, Hooker brings in Couch's corps into the battle hex there and uses 2 action points to put him into reserve, ready for a flanking manoeuvre. And I've just noticed, so I've moved into the next game turn, and I've just noticed how it's winnable, and it feels a bit strange. It's kind of gamey, because essentially what happened is Longstreet, Lee chose to go first this game turn. Lee moves into Winchester. Longstreet moves into Winchester and immediately escalates straight to a battle. And you can only ever have one battle per day. So he moved to the battle segment, and actually no, it's only ever one battle per player turn. No, so okay. So Longstreet will have a battle here, and then yes, okay. So then Hooker can continue that battle there. So what happens with the battle here at Winchester? Well, we've got Longstreet with 45 strength points and +9 in actually, he could activate a couple more leaders. 1, 2, I think he will. So he's going to activate McClaws and Hood, which gives him a total of 9 + 6 + 3, or 9 + 3 + 6, respectively. That's Hood on +6, so he's got +18. He doesn't need all that. And Melroy is on his own, single division with 0, but he has 4 levels of entrenchment, so he's going to try and entrench. No, he doesn't even have enough action points himself to entrench, and he's too far away from his department head to borrow action points from him, although, yeah, he could via telegraph, but that's, I think, only to move. Let me check that. Yeah, Hooker, sorry, can spend an action point to telegraph. Sorry, not Hooker. Heinzelman can spend. Oh, he has 0 action points himself. Oh no, sorry, he's got 2 action points. Yeah, he can spend one of those to order Melroy, dig in. You must stay, which he manages. So that's an extra level of entrenchment there. So I'll figure out the battle and come back. Okay, so in the first round, all Milroy can do is 1 point of damage, and Longstreet inflicts 10 strength points loss, which completely wipes out Milroy's division in 1 round of combat. So that's it. The Confederates have taken what they needed to take. In terms of Winchester, that is now successfully theirs. Oh, I've just remembered I forgot to check for leader losses in the battle down here. So I'll just check them here. So on 1 on each side there could be a loss. No. So if any casualties are caused, you just roll for each side, and on a 1 then you check for each leader. So in both battles they're fine. Okay, so now we go to this battle here. Okay, so that's actually because Hooker continued this in the second day. You get 3 rounds of combat. So in the first round, he brought in Couch as a reserve for flanking. He started out with 42. That brought him up to. That gave him another 24 strength points. Lee had started out at 26. At the end of those 3 rounds, Hooker's on 45 strength points, Lee's on 10, and Hooker's got Reynolds and Sickles' Corps, which are going to bring in another about 50 strength points altogether, maybe more like 40 or 35. But anyway, that's going to bring him up to 80 strength points versus 10. There's no way that Lee can survive that. There's 1 more day of the scenario that is impossible, and that would be a 3rd day of battle. Hooker would completely wipe out Lee and take that depot, or Lee will withdraw and that depot would be taken. And although he took Winchester, he won't have taken that. So it's very interesting though, because for example, Hooker spent a lot of action points to activate leaders at the beginning of this second day to give him a decent combat bonus, and then he brought in Couch from reserve, which cost another, which cost him I think 2 action points in total, which meant he ended up with not enough action points, A, to withdraw if he was in dire straits, or B, to bring in the other 2 in a flanking operation. So it's nice to see, that you have how your options are limited. But the possibilities are great, and bringing those extra units in, but you can't necessarily bring them to bear as and when the time you want. Oh, and in actual fact, I forgot again that as they came in, we have to roll to see if they joined anyway. So okay, so Couch wouldn't have, Sickles would have, Reynolds wouldn't have been available. Okay, so they wouldn't actually have been available. So I've made a mistake there. So that would keep, that would give Lee a few more strength points. But then they may or may not, and then Hooker, at the beginning of the next day, he can bring them in, instead of flanking, just spend extra action points to make sure they are not delayed on committal. And I think still Lee would not survive a 3rd day. It might mean that if I had played that, possibly he might have hung on by a hair's breadth, but that would have just been a silly sort of gamey situation where he'd have, his army would have been completely ruined, but they'd have hung on to the depot at Culpeper for whatever reason that meant strategically. But as I think that this is a learning game really, to see practice what forces you need to take Winchester, and I think the Union, it would be practice for them to fight, and maybe it's not winnable by the Confederates if Hooker decides to go for Culpeper Courthouse, but still you would learn some of the ropes. But it does bring into question to me, because you can't play the whole campaign in the advanced rules. It's just different scenarios. That are they actually imbalanced? I don't know, and I think I'll go into that in the review, because I think I come to the point in this game where I think it is a lovely system as a study of this campaign, but it does not offer you I was going to say it doesn't offer you a whole load of choices, but that's not true. It is offering you a whole load of decisions to make, but they are in the main administrative rather than manoeuvre decisions. The manoeuvre decisions, when it comes down to it, they look pretty much a done deal. Lee must move up through here, take Winchester, Harper's Ferry, and enter Pennsylvania, and if possible to take one of the Baltimore, or more likely Harrisburg, and even if possible to cut off Washington. And Hooker must somehow interpose himself and try and engage Lee in combat, but knowing where Lee's going to go, the only real option he has, because if he tries to go it through here, he's going to have to try and cross the Potomac, and Hooker's going to be able to defend that very well. So it's not really an option. So that being said, that I don't think there's a whole lot of replayability in the actual game in terms of manoeuvre, but there will be replayability in terms of study, in terms of saying, right, what if I left slow combined here and I took Meade with me? Which are the better commanders for what I need to do? Who am I going to take, and where am I going to put them? Because the armies do have to spread themselves out. They're having to guard different points. How am I going to spread my army out? Who's going to be available so I can concentrate? And that is a very interesting study of the decisions that the commanders would have made. But for a kind of exciting solitaire game, maybe not so much. Anyway, I'm going to get to that in the review, which I'm going to record forthwith.